Didn't realise. Thank you for letting me know. Lane. No pain free.
I couldn't help overhear Dar mentioning the surge's impact on the politics of our lands.
You really do pay attention to what happens around here, don't you?
A survival instinct. Growing up in Judea, you realise the walls have ears. If some of those ears aren't yours, you're at a disadvantage. That was actually the problem, you see?
The problem?
After the surge cascaded through the Maida, every kind of long-range magical communication broke down. So you have magical chaos and no way to confirm if your nation is under attack. You assume the worst and retaliate. Judea, my homeland, was hit hard. Our trade fleets had become rather dependent on magical navigation.
And they couldn't find their way home.
Or at least to a safe harbour. You could argue the loss of our fleets was worse than any individual war.
Because the trade network suddenly collapsed. My parents used to talk about shortages during those years. It got rough, they said.
Yes. And the worst wars are fought over resources when people are desperate. I very much hope we can find the true cause of all that suffering. And a way out to share it with the rest of the world after we do.
Did you see the size of that mine entrance? Amazing, isn't it?
You mean the one behind that huge deactivated arc?
That's the one. Given the size of the entrance, I can only imagine how huge the mine must have been. Their yields must have been incredible.
I've heard the rich resources are a big part of why weavers first settled this area.
The land's hostile, but they knew it was worth the risk. Ores from the Enclave are high grade, very pure.
Can I ask how you knew to pack up the camp outside the Vale?
The tangles were shifting. They'd been static the entire time. And then, suddenly, just as an arc deflects a wave of Drake's breath, they start to move. That's no coincidence.
How do you know to run to me, then?
The tangles closed down the path the caravan took in, and it wasn't like I was going to abandon you.
I believe I was promised one epic tale on how you discovered the route into the Vale's shadow.
I suppose I did promise you. Rumors of a safe passage into the shadow had been swirling among weaver circles for the last 5 years. They'd always piqued my interest, but I couldn't get a solid lead on it until 2 years ago. Weavers in a caravan bound for Don Brennig told me they no longer had a point. They'd lost an older Casil fellow who journeyed on the Strand Road before the surge. He insisted on one last big expedition before his retirement, into the Vale's shadow. It killed him, but they got pretty close.
So you got the route from that caravan?
Not quite. The point that died was the one who led them in. He had the trade roads memorized. But it was confirmation that getting close to the Vale was possible. I spent the next few months chasing leads. Eventually, I was able to trade an Ash Peak Drake's Tooth for a map of the trade roads with a dubious Ashar woman in Tarza.
A Drake's Tooth?
Some people believe grinding the tooth of a drake into a powder and consuming it could have stimulating properties.
Ah.
Fools. Regardless, between the map and the other leads, I was able to plan the route that led us to the Vale's shadow a fortnight ago. The final missing piece was an apprentice point to take on the expedition with me.
Glad I could help. Thanks for sharing, Aurea.
What's a good adventure if you can't regale someone with the tale later?
Sola is delighted with the improvements to her forge. She can refine your sword as soon as you'd like. Great work, Bryn.
Turns out we make a pretty good team. This campsite will be top of the line in no time.
Yeah, we're definitely going to need to start directing a water flow to the camp. Maybe even install a fountain in the back. Would help to get a garden going in here too. Fruits, vegetables, medicinal herbs. Oh, that reminds me, we'll need the... What?
Do you ever take a break? You know, to enjoy a job well done?
Sure. Sometimes. Once there are fewer fires to put out, I'll relax. I swear.
Just try to remember, it's not the end of the world if you take a break. Someone will step in to help lighten your load.
It doesn't always feel like the others realize how much needs to get done.
Then tell them. Like how you told me we needed supplies. I stepped in to help, didn't I?
You did. I see your point.
The others will do the same.
Maybe. I'd better get back to work, but this was nice.
I knew we'd recover. We always do. Still feels nice to have my core tools back this quickly.
Still a long way to go, but we'll get there.
Speaking of, I've something for you. We've been scavenging around the way station and reclaimed a fair amount of useful materials. They're stored away and ready for you. Should be enough to reforge your sword as we discussed.
What should I expect from a reforged sword?
It depends on the materials we use. Some hold edge better, making your swipes that much more deadly. Others make your gear lighter. Or, for something like armor, change the way it handles heat and cold.
What's the key difference between reforging my gear and just making something new?
If you want gear that does something fundamentally different, make something new. For instance, there are fabrics, metals, leathers, and so on that are highly resistant to heat. A suit of armor made of a combination of those would have been incredible against the Drake you faced in the Vale's shadow. If you don't need something additional, and just want to improve what you already have, that's when you reforge. Keeps the clutter down in the caravan.
Can you also reforge armor? Improve my bow?
Sure can. Weapons or armor, We can rework them with different materials as you prefer.
Sounds like it's time to make something that can punch through arc armor.
That's the spirit.